I feel like I'm saying this at the beginning of every wrap up recently, but yes, I was still slumping. Hi everyone, my name's Chloe, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here today. Today's video is going to be my October reading wrap up. October is probably my worst reading month I've had so far this year. It's not been great. I took a while to finish a book. It's the same story every month. It's taken me a while to get past that first book and then sort of catching up with myself throughout the month. I did manage to finish a fair few towards the end of the month, but not great. Just not great, which isn't fun as well, considering I was taking part in a readathon hosted by two of my friends. I was taking part in Royal Readathon hosted by Becca and Liv. I was on Team Villain, which is Becca's team. The team did win, which yay, that came out yesterday, so very happy about that. And I did contribute. I did definitely do some of the prompts. There was one that I didn't hit, plus the team book, and I just really wanted to do all of them. I probably won't go through which one works for which prompt in this because I have already forgotten what I submitted. I'm trying to move past October. I'm filming this on the 3rd of November and I have already read 2 books. Granted, one of them was a graphic novel and one of them was the Heartstopper yearbook, but they still count. And also, it is my readathon this month, so I'm trying to be positive about my reading. So I'm just gonna forget that October wasn't great, apart from obviously when I'm wrapping it up and telling you stats now, which I will actually do. So I actually read one more book than the month previously. I read 7 books during the month of October. September I only read 6, so technically it wasn't my worst month, but in a couple of other things it was, mainly in the pages per day. So I read 3,053 pages in total during the month of October, which again is a little bit higher than what it was in September. September I read less books, but they were chunkier, and I read 3,007 pages that day, that month. So that meant that a 45 page difference. But because I was one day more in the month of October, now I've got Les Mis songs in my head, because I was one day more in the month of October, it does mean that my pages per day were actually less. So I read 98.48 pages per day, which just irritates me to no end because I am trying to read on average 100 pages per day, and this is the first month that I've gone underneath that, and it's grating on me just a little bit. I am still over it for the year. I'm at 145.81 for the year, and to be honest, even if I had nothing else for the rest of the year, I will be over it. I will be at 121.44 if I've read absolutely nothing else for the rest of the year. So, you know, we're still okay. But it is irritating me. I want to come back stronger this month just to make up for that, basically. When I mentioned that the books the month before were chunkier, the pages per book this month was 436. The month before it was over 500. So yes, some slightly smaller books, which contributed to the less pages per day. Had I just read something that was just a tiny bit chunkier. In terms of the format, I read 1 completely on ebook, 1 that was completely audiobook, 4 that were a mixture of audio and some type of physical read, and then 1 that was completely physical. I definitely used audiobooks to try and push me through the slump a little bit, hence why 5 of them had some sort of audio component and I only read 7 books. For age range, we're very split down the middle, so we've got 3 YA and 4 adult. Not much to say about that one really. And then for star ratings, we had 1 3-star, 4 4-stars and 2 5-stars. So pretty average month, which is good. At least I wasn't hating everything I read. That would have made the slump even worse. But that's all my statistics. They're a little bit sad. Let's talk about the actual books that I read, because hopefully this will be a little bit less sad, because I did really enjoy some of these. So I finished last month reading Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, and I started this month reading All the Feels by Olivia Dade. This is the 2nd book in a companion series, so it follows the best friend of the male love interest from Spoiler Alert. Basically, he is an actor on a TV show and he does some things that don't necessarily go down too well in the press, so the producers of the show hire him a sort of minder to keep him in check, and it's about their relationship, their growing romance. It is the TV show that he is on is based on Game of Thrones, very obviously, because it talks a lot about how the last series goes downhill and the showrunners don't know what they're doing, and it is very obviously Game of Thrones. I had a good time reading this one. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as Spoiler Alert. I like Alex as a main character, but I didn't find myself as interested in, every time I say this I can never remember the character's name, Lauren. I didn't find myself as interested in Lauren as I was in the characters from the first book. My brain is not working. It's Marcus and is it April? It's either April or May. It's a month name, I know that. I thought I'd be able to find it in here, but I can't. So wherever the main character was in the first one, I preferred the female main character in the first one to the one in this one. And yeah, I think I just preferred the romance in general, like the setup of the first one to this one. Not that there was anything like majorly wrong with this. Like I said, I still give it a 4 stars, but what it was with, they were both probably like a 4.5, but the first one rounded up to a 5, whereas this one rounded down to a 4. So it was like a very fine margin, but very much enjoyed it. I have ordered the Illumicrate edition of the third one, so I will be carrying on with the series. And yeah, new romance author that I will be keeping an eye out for any new releases from. The next book I read, I don't actually have a physical copy to hold because this is the ebook that I read, and this was a buddy read with Meg from 12 Books a Day, and it is Bunny by Mona Howard. I've been meaning to read this for so long. I can't really give you a synopsis of it because it's just weird. It's a girl at university and she is in a writing program, and the other people in her class are this bunch of girls who all call each other Bunny, and there's definitely something weird with this group, and throughout the book she kind of starts to interact with them a little bit more and finds out a little bit more about what's happening. But does she really find out? Because I still can't really tell you what happened. I mean, I can tell you like scene for scene what happened, but I can't tell you why anything happened or how anything happened. It just happened. I gave this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was weird. It had really beautiful writing, and it was just like the nice mixture of weird and beautiful that I wanted it to be. I'm not going to talk about this one for too long because I think it's better not knowing too much about it. Like, it was just interesting. Like, I had a lot of like thoughts on it to Meg as we were doing the buddy read. I had like, there were voice notes sent every night and we were both just like, but what's this? But why? But what? And like, there was so many thoughts I had, but I cannot say any of them right now without spoiling it. I'm very sorry. Just read it. Just read it. It's fun. Kind of. Anyway, I'm going to move on to the next book because that was a really bad wrap up of that one. The next book that I read was The First to Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I gave this one 4 stars. Part of me wanted to give it 5 just for like nostalgia reasons, even though it's not, it's a new release. It's prequel to They Both Die at the End. But I knew that like technically I knew really that I shouldn't give it 5 stars, so I gave it 4. But actually I do kind of already want to reread it because I finished this the day that I went to a book signing event with Adam Silvera, and listening to some of the things about him writing this book and why he chose to do certain things in here that was kind of irritating me a little bit. Hearing him explain it made me go, oh, actually that might have been a really good choice and maybe I should reread it and maybe I'll appreciate it more now I know it's going in that direction. Basically, this one is set in the same world, like I said, as They Both Die at the End. It is completely different characters. I would say completely, there are some cameos, but the main characters are completely different and completely separate from the main two because it's set a fair while before. The world that it's set in is basically one where on the day that you're going to die, you get a phone call from a company called Deathcast that tells you you're going to die that day. You don't know how, you don't know when exactly, but you know it's within that sort of calendar day. And this is set on the first day that happens. So at this point, people aren't really signed up to the service, and it is about a couple of people, and it's about 2 teenagers who do sign up on the first day, and one of them gets a phone call, and this is about their last day and kind of how that transpires. And it does have an element of what happened in They Both Die at the End, where it is a love story between 2 characters and it's them spending this last day together and kind of making the most of it. It takes a while for that bit to kick in, and that's kind of the issue that I had when I was reading it, because it felt like with their storyline, because there is another storyline, with their storyline it felt like it just kind of stood at a standstill for a little bit, because in They Both Die at the End, it's a while into the service, so there are all these things that are set up for people whose last day it is. Those wouldn't exist at this point because people were still sceptical of the service as a whole. So it feels like no one really knows what to do, and it takes a while for them to go, actually, let's just make this last day really special. There is another element of this, which is actually about the company that creates Deathcast and things going wrong with the service on the first day, like not exactly going to plan. And that felt a little bit strange because it was a very different vibe, and I think that's what threw me out of it a little bit. But this is a bit that I heard him talk about and I was like, oh no, it makes a lot of sense as to why you would include that. And I think I might need to go back and read it and sort of appreciate that bit a little bit more. I'm not going to read it straight away, but maybe like next year at some point I'll reread them both. don't need to reread the other one actually, but maybe I'll reread this one. There is going to be a third book in this world, but we don't know exactly what that is yet, so I'm intrigued to see what the next story is going to be. He did hint at it. But yeah, I did enjoy it, just not as much as They Both Die at the End. Like, it didn't have quite as much of an emotional punch. I will say though, and Adam Silvera said this himself at the sign-in, this is technically a better book. It is a better written book. He said himself that it's been a while since I've wrote that, and I've wrote quite a few books since. If it's not technically better, then something's wrong really. But he himself said that he is more attached to the other one. So I think emotionally, the other one gets to me more, and because I rate more in emotions, that's probably why this one I don't love quite as much. That being said, I still really, really enjoyed it. I had a good time reading it. If you can say a good time reading it, because it's an Adam Silvera book. It's not meant to be that happy. The next book that I read is one that took me a while to get through, and I don't know why, because I did enjoy it. I think, again, it just took me like a bit of time to get invested in it. Once it got to the ending, here for it, I need the next one immediately. That book is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. I've had this one since it came out earlier on this year, and I've just been meaning to read it, and I thought, what better time than spooky season? So this is set in sort of our world, but there are witches. So obviously the acronym for this is HMRC. It is a world where there is sort of this witch coven that is kind of hidden in plain sight almost, and basically this follows a sort of friendship group who something happened a few years previously, and the friendship group kind of ended up in various different places, and then a threat comes back and they end up having to kind of reunite, and they end up having to kind of reunite and fight against things. And fight against that, and also some other things as well that I actually wasn't expecting. There's a lot of discussion on kind of issues that are real world issues. Like, a big theme of this is LGBTQ plus rights, and I really enjoyed that part of the storyline. I think Juno Dawson handled it. I think Juno Dawson did a great job of tying that in. And like I said, once it kind of got into that main part of the story, and things started like kicking off towards the end as well, I was so invested in this. But at the beginning, I just found it a bit difficult to kind of differentiate some of the characters and figure out where we were really, and like where we were at with this story. I think I got a hold on it by the end, but at the beginning I was just like a little bit lost. I did actually have to reread the first 100 pages because I put it down for a while, and I was like, I really can't remember who any of these people are or where they're at in the storyline. But once I did start reading it, I kind of read it all in one chunk, and I did very much enjoy it. So I've given it 4 stars. It could potentially go up on a reread, but I still think that first section might be a little bit slow for me. But I think the second one has so much potential. So very excited for it. It comes out next year, I think, and it is called The Shadow Cabinet, because we're sticking with the political names. And also do recommend the audiobook for this. It's narrated by Nicola Coughlan from Bridgerton and Derry Girls, and she did a very, very good job with the audiobook. Next up, I read a slightly disappointing sequel, which is sad, and it was A Psalm of Storms and Silence by Roseanne A. Brown. I really, really, really loved the first book in the series, which was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, and I'll tell you the synopsis of the first one because it's difficult to tell you the synopsis of the second one without spoiling things. Basically, in the first one, you have Malik and you have Karina, and Karina is a princess and her mother's life is in danger, and she has to kill the would-be king in order to save her. But and Malik's sister is in trouble, and he has been asked to kill the princess in order to save his sister. So basically, Karina first needs to find a king, which means she needs to find herself a husband. So she starts a competition, and the winner gets her hand in marriage, and essentially she plans to kill the winner of the competition. Malik enters the competition to try and get closer to her to kill her, and it was a really, really good setup, and the first book was so good, and this one I just found a little bit boring. It felt like very sort of typical YA fantasy. It felt like there was nothing really new happening. It was stuff I'd read before. It was a lot slower. It did focus on the characters more, which is fun because I do like these characters, but I just felt like not much was happening, and it's a fairly chunky book, and I don't think it needed to be. Like, either we needed to sort of either we needed to sort of break off earlier in the first book and carry some of that in here so that we didn't have this lull, or it just needed to be one really long book and just add like more of this into that one, because it felt like only really the end part of it was particularly important. But I'm going to sort of stop rambling about this one because, like I said, it's really hard to discuss without giving spoilers. But yeah, just a little bit disappointed. I'm giving it like a 3 star. It was 3.5, but I'm going to round it down to a 3 because, yeah, just found myself fairly disappointed in it. sadly. Next up we have another 4-star read, and that is my first Grady Hendrix book I've ever read. It is A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I'm only going to say that once because it is tongue-tying. This I've had for a while, and I've actually got a couple of Grady Hendrix books to read. I've got this one and I've got My Best Friend's Exorcism. I have also got Horror Store on hold from the library. It was supposed to come in this month and it hasn't, which is sad because I wanted to read that during spooky season as well. But I decided to go with this one first. I don't know if that was the best decision. I do think I'll probably prefer My Best Friend's Exorcism. I did really like the writing style of this, but I don't think the storyline wasn't exactly what I expected it to be. Like, it is about, there is a vampire in it, but I don't know, I feel like I thought like that was going to be more to it, if that makes sense. Like, it was very sort of foreboding throughout it, but like the way it's, I don't know, the way it sort of sounds from the front, I thought it was going to be like this book club that was going to team up to fight, and it felt like it was one character leading the charge and the others were slightly secondary until, again, sort of fairly late on into it. But I did very much enjoy it still. I feel like it did a good job of sort of having this sort of horror element to it, but then also having other things as well. Like, there was some very like toxic, like there were some very like toxic people in this, and I feel like the balance of it and the kind of setup of this small southern town balanced with this horror element worked very, very well. Like I said, I really, really liked the writing style, so I'm excited to try more. I will be reading My Best Friend's Exorcism soon because that one sounds right up my street, so hopefully we'll get around to it sooner rather than later. And then last but by no means least, because it is a 5-star read, and although Corpile tried to resist me on putting this as a 5-star read, so it's definitely more on an enjoyment level than a technical level. But anyway, the last book I read during the month of October was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I really, really love the Caraval series and the first book in this series. I know they're not the best things ever written, but I just find them really compelling and I really like enjoy them. I like the characters in them, and same with this one. I just found myself getting very absorbed in it very, very quickly. I'm not going to tell you a synopsis of this because I still stand by the fact that even telling you who one of the main characters in this can potentially spoil the Caraval series if you have not finished it yet. But what I will tell you is about the character of Evangeline Fox, because she is a new character to this series, and she found herself in a bit of a predicament in the first book when she tried to stop the man that she loved from getting married to someone else, and she made a deal with somebody and things took a turn from there. And again, I can't tell you too much because this is a sequel, but the ending of this book, like, I was invested anyway. It was a little bit slower than it was a little bit more of a non-event than the first one. Like, things didn't seem quite as like dramatic, but it is the middle book in a series. We weren't sure if it was going to be the middle book or the last book because Stephanie Garber wouldn't confirm before it came out. She did confirm like a little bit after release and before I'd read it that this is actually the second book in the series and there is going to be a third book, which I'm very happy about, because if you've read it, you know this ending needs another book after it. But because of that, it did get a little bit like, but because of that, I feel like it was a little bit slower. It was a little bit less dramatic. But then when things started happening. And yeah, this ending, like, one of the characters that I really, really enjoy, like, you're sort of unsure of for a while. And I'm unsure of them, to be honest. But I really, liked their reaction to something. And it made me feel sort of, like, okay about liking them so much. And yeah, I'm very intrigued to see where this goes from here, because things took a turn at the end of it, and that's all I'm going to say. Okay, so these plus Bunny is what I read during the month of October. Like I said, I still had a good reading month, like in terms of enjoyment. There's nothing that I really hated. There's the one disappointment, but everything else was either a 4 or a 5 star. So, you know, I had a good month, just less than I wanted it to be. But like I said, November, we're already off to a good start, so hopefully it's going to carry on that way. And hopefully next month I'm going to come at you with a wrap up that's just got all the books on it. That being said, I am very busy in November, so we will see. I think that's pretty much everything. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff down below, and I'll see you guys next time with a new video. Bye.